Hey, Andrei.
Hello, everybody.
Cool.
Okay, I think we are live. Welcome everyone to today's panel here at Data Ops Unleashed on building versus buying, with a special emphasis on the modern data stack. As someone who's a big data nerd myself, I'm really excited by this topic. Build versus buy is a question for all layers of the enterprise infrastructure stack, but not just the data layer. But it's hard to think of a piece of that stack that has seen so much change in the last decade and just in the past 5 years. I mean, just to think, 5 years ago, Snowflake was still a private company, and a lot of people hadn't even heard of it. DBT had just been founded, and even fewer people had heard of that. Fast forward to today, and these technologies, along with a host of others, have totally transformed how businesses think about managing and working with data. But of course, the kind of eternal build versus buy question still remains, hence today's panel. Just a quick introduction on myself. I'm a partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners, where I invest mainly in enterprise software with a specific emphasis on technical tooling that serves technical individuals, primarily developers and data scientists. As I mentioned, I'm a massive data nerd, and I've been programming and working with data ever since I was a kid. So again, I'm really, really excited about this topic. And I am joined by three really distinguished conversation partners. To start, Andrei Lopatenko, who has had a long and illustrious history at various technology companies that you would all recognize. But today he's VP of Engineering at Zillow. He focuses primarily on search, NLP, and conversational AI. He's also a computer science PhD. Gokul Prabagaren is an engineering manager at Capital One, where he leads Capital One's card features, and a longtime IBM veteran before that. Gokul is also a frequent writer and speaker on data engineering and other topics, so I'm sure he feels quite comfortable up on this stage today. And last but not least, we're joined by Richter, a computer science PhD and data engineer at Squarespace. Aaron has a ton of great talks and content on YouTube, by the way, where he discusses various big data and data engineering technologies, which everyone should definitely check out. And so with those introductions, I'd love to launch into this panel, and I have a number of topics I wanted to touch on. But I thought, maybe to start, it'd be good before we discuss any particular technologies, just to talk through how one even thinks about build versus buy. Like, what's the decision matrix you go through in your organization? What are the key variables or factors that you think about when deciding whether to build versus buy in the data stack specifically? I'll open it up. Anyone who wants to go first, feel free.
So I think being the regulated company in the industry, I think the things which we probably considered when we mostly it's like what kind of customization that product offers, or what space we need for our needs. Like, to call out an example where there are cases in which there are some unique data schemas or the formats in which we may need to ingest the data. Those kind of things, like banking format, those kind of things, and it's not readily available in a lot of those byproducts. Right? It may be a feature, but that customization and specificity, right, that is one of the things. Along with that, probably more into the control as well, right? How much of control we have on the product, and also when we process the things, there are a lot of regulatory needs for us, right? So how we will be able to answer those kind of things if we are doing it in-house. When I say in-house, the build, or when we are adopting any particular product. I mean, we are in the both boats. We do we have built a lot of things, and we do buy things, and we utilize those things, right? To start with that, I think probably those are the things as things I may consider for my need.
And maybe like a follow-up for you, Gokul, like as you think about customization, is that something that you would say blocks you from adopting or kind of buying external tooling, or something that you use to kind of decide amongst the different options?
Right, that is one of the things we consider, right?
Yeah.
If those kind of, as I was saying, more like there is a specific banking format we may need, that we may not be able to readily available. So then building takes more priority in those situations, right? So that those in those cases we have opted for building. In a lot of cases, we in turn are running those clusters in different products from our vendors. Those kind of things are also there, but that's also a thing which we have considered primarily.
Customization, control, and
Customizations.
you could have had a third C. I was hoping for like a third C. You could have had a little thing going there. It's okay though. Aaron, Andre, any thoughts?
Yeah, I can build on what Gokul said. Definitely, like a lot of the considerations that he said are things that I consider as well. Thinking too from the organizational perspective, I think also there's a few factors that come from just purchasing or choosing to invest in something, right? There's money, right? It is always kind of like a factor, right? You can do the math and say, okay, we expect we'll need this many engineers, over this much time every year to build, and then you can compare that to the cost of the product. Like that's a good exercise to go through, and it's going to depend on the organization how much you're willing to invest. But I think beyond that too, a key part is like the expertise of the organization or the team. I come from also like smaller startups. Now at a larger company at Squarespace, you can see kind of different ways that you might make those decisions. But like if you're a company where there's a handful of analysts who are doing kind of your heavy lifting data work, to go in and build like an orchestration tool or to build kind of some other custom stuff, it would take them away from their focus and their expertise of like providing insights to the business. And it might distract them from the kind of core focus of what they need. In that case, maybe it's worth spinning up an entire engineering team for some tool, or it's better to just kind of buy that. And then the other thing is maybe even organizational culture. There's certain organizations that just have a bent towards building. They may be a larger company. They're okay with dedicating several engineers to building an in-house solution. Other companies may be kind of newer, more streamlined, wanting to just add kind of off-the-shelf things. So those from the organizational side, there's a couple other things to think about.
Yeah, and go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I can add from my side. There are multiple considerations, right? It's usually pretty complicated choice. So certainly there are functional requirements, right? You have certain understanding what requirements from your to this particular tool set, and there are different functional. I mean, like all technical requirements from certain support up to performance requirements, especially if you have some large volumes of data, you have a large queries per second volumes to process, right? There are a lot of requirements, and certainly not all systems on the markets satisfy those requirements. So sometimes it's better to build your own system just because you cannot find something which satisfies your requirements. So sometimes you find something which satisfies your requirements, and another is important to understand not just what's the current product, but what long-term roadmap. And frequently you have to meet the team and understand what they build now, but what they're going to build within 1 year. This first part. Second, very important is compatibility with your existing infrastructure, right? Like when we were building startup, like we built startup, which we sold to Facebook in 2017, we built everything on your own. And when you are working in a big company, you have existing infrastructure, different layers. What cloud environment you use, what set of technologies you use, right? And there may be some perfect solution outside from functional requirements point of view, but it's not compatible from your other technology stack, or maybe to build this compatibility will require very significant investment into development efforts. And it's not just like it should run on the same cloud. Sometimes frequently it's like compliance requirements, privacy compliance, will it support what you need? So there are a lot of stuff going on, but first of all, technological requirements. And second, of course, important to consider also quality of solution, right? Not all data products on the market have high quality from different points of view. And sometimes you need much more narrow functionality than the whole product, but quality is really, and quality there are different aspects of this, right? Critical for you. So sometimes it makes sense to build something maybe more narrow than big product available outside, but it will be do high quality what you need. And again, compatibility with your operations environment, with your SRE, with skills of your team. So there are many of those decisions you have to make to decide, do we want to build our product or we want to use that existing outside.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And there was one point I wanted to pick up on, and I think, Aaron, you had mentioned it around sort of cost considerations and comparing, this tool's going to cost us this much and it's going to save us this much in headcount. One thing that's come up a lot in my conversations with, founders in this arena is sort of what's the more compelling pitch, that we're going to save you headcount or we're going to make your existing headcount more productive. And I know like mathematically you could frame those as being the same thing or two sides of the same coin, but I do wonder if that kind of resonates differently with you as potential buyers. Curious if you have any thoughts there.
As someone, I think my perspectives are coming more from the IC side of things, just because that's kind of where I've been working in, and like not having the buying power, but trying to convince people with the buying power to do things. But in general, it seems that, especially in data and like across a lot of teams, everybody's always like oversubscribed, right? Everybody always has like too much work to do, and we don't have like enough people to accomplish those. So in my perspective, the compelling part is we're going to make you more efficient. We're going to make it give you less headaches, less things to manage, rather than saying, oh, you can, reduce headcount or you don't have to make any additional hires. That's from my perspective more compelling.
I also probably feel the same. Like it more depends on where you want to invest as well, right? It's the timing in which where you're investing. It's an upfront cost or it's a running cost, right? So if we have the do all these things upfront, then probably we are okay. And if being a larger company, right, I think there definitely a lot of things we have built the things, right? So because we, as Aaron was saying, like we do have a huge pool of engineering resource where we can attack this with more force, right? So that may not be applicable for a lot of small startups, right? But they probably may tend more towards the buying, right? So those kind of things is what probably helps when we try to make the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. Those considerations very important, right? And development cost, like, do we want to buy this on this number of people? It's like small part of consideration, not small, but part, right? There are operation costs, which can be very different versus operating your product versus other product. And again, like for human equation, right? It's not just number of people head count, right? There are different, maybe like you have small number of engineers, but then you have to invest more into data science part or data engineering part or analytics. Those parts are actually very important to understand if you buy this product versus build, like what people time you save, and then how important these people currently for the company. Maybe like at this front we can afford to have a little bit more people, but here we can also, there are multiple those people considerations quite important to do.
Yeah, you have to take that holistic. Go ahead, Gokul.
Oh, sorry, but I think that's the good point, because when I was also saying like upfront and running costs, sometimes it may appeal to build things, and then that has a troll. And when we are trying to really do a lot of features, right, it requires people to, and that may not be going very well with the new features and a lot of things we may need to add, right? Those kind of things also, as he said, I think the human aspects of maintaining also matters.
Right. I'm curious, thank you for the thoughts on that one. I wanted to talk about a particular trend, this sort of modern data stack, which can be defined, different ways, but I tend to think about it primarily as relating to, having data sitting in the cloud and working with, cloud native tooling to work on that data. And so think about cloud data warehouses, whether it's Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, and then cloud native tooling, whether it's transferring data back and forth with something like a Fivetran to transforming the data that's sitting in the warehouse with tools like dbt or Matillion. I'm curious if the sort of decision matrix changes at all when the cloud is sort of part of the consideration set in terms of build versus buy? Like, how has that affected your decision making over the past few years?
Yeah, I think that's where I may say that is a vendor in probably it's more like when we are into that cloud environment, I feel like it's more trending towards a place where it's more managed service, right? I may say that may not be in the same equation as build or buy, but it's more skews towards the managed option, whatever they offer, because it's that compatibility where it's all the things are available within the same ecosystem. So it more skews towards the managed option, whatever they provide for all these things.
You're saying if they offer both a self-managed and a truly managed offering, the cloud makes you tend to lean towards the managed offering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like one of the core premises of the modern data stack. If you think about it, I think about it in terms of a cloud data warehouse, some kind of processing tool like DBT, and then some kind of orchestration tool, right, like Airflow or Prefect. And the major there's probably one pillar of that side where you would never think to build it yourself, and that's the cloud data warehouse side, right? So you're kind of always going to be now paying for a cloud vendor, whether it's Snowflake, BigQuery, things like that. So you already have your foot in the door there, and you're already buying, right? So then that kind of opens the door now to like buying more things, adding things on there, things that can integrate really easily, like you said about Fivetran. It kind of helps that culture shift if a culture was very build oriented to kind of be more like okay with buying things.
Yeah, I can add it from my side. Cloud infrastructure becomes a really important decision factor, right? Theoretically, certainly you want to have your infrastructure to be independent on cloud, but it never happens by multiple different reasons. Certainly, like cloud, like tools for specific cloud, make integration work much more easier. It's just part. Integration is just part, but it's very important part. Like second, of course, like once you have to think about the multi-cloud, having it comes a lot of privacy, security, other considerations. Like assume your most infrastructure in Amazon cloud, and then you want to use BigQuery by some reasons, right? Then you have to transfer data to BigQuery, right? Keep it there, but other your tools have to use it from on Amazon cloud from BigQuery. In principle, it's possible, but there are a lot of technical problems. Both like using cloud cost, network loss, but then also latency through output of these solutions. So there are multiple different factors when cloud becomes a very key factor to deciding what decisions you will make, what tools to use.
Yeah. And do you think at all about vendor lock-in when it comes to the cloud specifically, and how that factors into your build versus buy calculations? I feel like I spend a lot of time with companies that are trying to enable sort of multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. It goes by many different names, what have you. But obviously, the individual cloud providers all have their incentive to not enable that. How are you guys thinking about sort of playing the different cloud vendors off of each other? If you are doing that.
I think because we have gone through the journey, the initial period where that was part of a lot of these conversations, right? I think once you are into the ecosystem, right, the things which happens at the engineer or the engineering team level, I feel like that may not be a lot of influencing factor, because it's more like they are already into the ecosystem, and they are more, those decisions are not definitely going towards the multi-cloud, right? They're part of the building process, or maybe you vendor offers those kind of things, but the decisioning probably may be happening in maybe at the top level, where there's definitely multi-cloud. It's there across any enterprise. That strategy is there, but when it comes to the engineering teams, I feel like they're more towards one cloud is where they are pretty much using it. That's my thought.
Yep. Go ahead, Andrei.
This Samuel, like theoretically, certainly hypercloud, multi-cloud is good, and there are a lot of new tools appearing, right? Both independent and from main cloud providers such as Google and AWS to help you with multi-cloud deployments. I think majority of these tools are quite far from being mature to really enable fast, rapid, and reliable development of multi-cloud solutions. And so basically what happens at the end, yes, you quite locked to some particular cloud, right? And basically once you use this cloud as your primary foundation of your ecosystem, then basically most of other tools you select to be tuned for that cloud, right? So this locking happens here.
Yeah, and then a lot of these tools built on top of clouds tend to support multiple of those clouds, or you think of something like Databricks executes on different clouds, and you're seeing more and more of that happen to where you're not necessarily even using managed services directly from a cloud. You're using something like Snowflake that can run in different places, and then yes, you're still stuck inside of your own cloud, but you're not interacting directly with that cloud anymore. It's almost like a utility layer, and then there's other
Sure.
services on top that are communicating for you.
Yeah, yeah. Since we have some folks here who have particular experience in certain domains, I wanted to ask Andrei and Aaron a question about sort of build versus buy in data science specifically. And there's a sort of interesting dynamic that I've sort of found. I'm curious if you agree, where you as an organization could have the most brilliant sort of machine learning experts, AI experts, PhDs, what have you, but the skill sets in those domains are different than the skill sets of software engineering. And so when it comes time to sort of build versus buy, oftentimes you can have all the expertise in-house for the kind of math of what you're doing, but maybe not to actually sort of compose this stuff. Is that something that you found in and maybe you don't have to be specific about your organizations, but do you agree with that dichotomy?
This what exactly dichotomy? Just
yeah, this idea that in data science there's sort of this tension where talent that has expertise around machine learning and AI doesn't necessarily transfer to software engineering in terms of building the tools that will support your data science, etc. efforts.
Yeah, it's actually a very good point, right? I observe that now there are many data scientists who are not really experts in software engineering overall on the market, right? In my organizations, and I know like many other companies, like what we do in Zillow, but like I know like I was in Google, I know they have pretty the same culture. Amazon, I have a lot of friends the same. They tend to have that even if you're a scientist, you must be quite good software engineer, right? There are different ways how you establish this, but such that you're capable to build tools, right? But what I say, like what you say, I think you agree. So this big dichotomy that many data scientists or many applied scientists are not really good engineers, they create market. I don't say about particular organization, but they create a lot of market demand for tools for data scientists, which in principle can be created inside companies, but just hire a team of data scientists that don't build systems. So for them, it's much more easy to buy tools, even if these tools actually, most of them are pretty easy to build, right? So I don't say about particular organization, but certainly I see on the market this high specialty like that. Not every company like us, like Google, Amazon has culture that scientists are also good engineers. Many companies don't have this. And this separation creates quite a lot of demand on the market for data science tools, enabling sometimes simple stuff, but another like data science tools which data scientists cannot build because they're not software engineers. Maybe sometimes they're quite simple, but just because there is no like development skills in that team, they're buying tools outside. Certainly I see quite a lot of such trends in the market.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Andrei on that point, because if you think about it in a kind of, to come up with like an analogy, you wouldn't typically expect any data analysts to build their own BI tools. You expect them to use some kind of off-the-shelf ones. They're similar, it's not exactly one-to-one, but you kind of think about that similar idea, like the development environment and experience for data scientists or people doing machine learning. If they're going to focus on the modeling, it's hard to expect them to also focus on like spinning up Kubernetes clusters and figuring out their Docker images and how do they deploy things and how is your Jupyter lab running. And like I previously was at a startup that was building a kind of cloud-based data science platform and had a lot of exposure to that space. And I think that's a really interesting space to watch in the next few years, because companies have been building this internally because they have had to, because there haven't been good tools. They're building their own, Jupyter's open source and it's a great notebook tool, but like there's a lot that you need around that to build your Python environments to make sure that they're working. And then how do you deploy those things? It's a really interesting space that's moving quickly, and I can see that turning towards build more in the coming future, whereas towards buy in the coming future, whereas larger companies have been building this for a long time internally.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it from my end because, as you guys are probably aware of, you have these ML ops market landscape that get created, and there's just so many logos. I think we've kind of explained that dynamic here. Yeah, thanks for the thoughts on that. And I had another kind of specific question for Gokul around build versus buy and how that's changed within financial services specifically. I've always found Capital One to be a very progressive organization when it comes to adopting new technologies. I see them on a lot of startup websites as a customer and an early adopter, but maybe financial services broadly is sort of slower to move. How do you think, is any discussion here, would you sort of modify for particular need within financial services, or like, how do you think about that?
So I think whatever we discuss, I think we are spaces, because I think the previous one also, like we do have a specific data science folks who are they're analysts, and they take care of a lot of those parts where things, and I on the other side where we build the pipeline, and we are the folks who really manage those things and for using the data, right? When it comes to Capital One altogether, I think, as I said, we are in all the place where I was part of the organization which has completely built the platform which processes most of our credit card transactions. At the same time, there are a lot of things we have utilized when we adapted to the cloud. So we are definitely consumers of a lot of those products. I probably may not be able to name more, like, right, we do utilize those things in our process, right? But specifically to call out why probably we tend towards initially when we did the things, it's more like answering the audit questions or those kind of specific needs what we have when it comes to the way in which we manage customer transactions, right? So I come from the credit card side of the house, so there are a lot of things which go into the specificity of how we process their transactions. And in simple terms, when we say, hey, customer has our customer is going to earn so and so, they really earned so much what we said, right? So that is probably a simple sentence, but it's in order to prove that fact, there are a lot of things we need to consider. So we probably more tend towards customization or control, right? So see, right now we don't have anything running in on-prem, all these things. As you said, we are 100% on cloud. Still,
Right.
our focus will be in this area where how we can tightly control things. We may not just put things anywhere on the cloud, or say without that wrapper around that, right? We need to have anything we do, we need to have that control for us. So that is where primary focus is.
Yeah, so I think I found the last C. It's control, customization, and cloud. So we found the three C's for Capital One. Awesome. Thank you all for the thoughts. And in the last maybe 50 seconds, very quick lightning round predictions. I know predictions are oftentimes a bad idea because you end up being wrong. But if you had to predict one part of the data stack that is either currently more build, you think it's going to be more buy, or is currently more buy, and you think it's going to be more build over time, what might you say? Gokul, you want to go first?
I don't have a specific prediction, but my maybe on a high level, the abstractions, right? The more abstractions we have, those things probably helps. And I want to see managing their Kubernetes cluster for Spark, all these things. There needs to be more level of abstraction.
Okay. Aaron?
I think I might throw in two here, but I think two things that are going to be more build, I already alluded to it, is data science platforms, right? And then I think another one buy. It's going to be more buy. And I think another one that's going to tend to be more buy is DBT. It's a very great open source tool and really easy to pick up, and you don't need to buy DBT Cloud. But if you see the new features they're adding and you see the direction they're going with like the metrics layer and things like that, it starts to make more and more sense to buy it.
Interesting. Yeah, Andrei?
I think one of big things is integration of inference, like artificial intelligence, machine learning inference into data stack, right? Which will give like BigQuery was recently doing a lot of work such that you can deploy models inside and use them when you query data. You can run immediately models on the queried data. I think like this product has very big perspective because it will be so big in simplification and acceleration of work of data science teams, all teams which are focused on building both analytics but also other like customer focusing products and using like inference over data. So integration of data tools with inference tools from machine learning stack, from data science stack, from AI stack has very big potential.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and wisdom here. As I said, like I'm a massive data nerd. I could listen to this stuff all day. I'll probably right after this go open up YouTube and listen to one of Aaron's many cool data engineering talks. So thank you all for spending some time with me, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. Really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you.